This is the plaintiff, Michael Day. He says he agreed to rent a 2-bedroom apartment from the defendant, but when he went over to lease it, said the defendant was unaware of any lead problems in the paint. When he asked for his deposit back, he was denied and is suing for $2,500, the amount he owed. This is the defendant, Lucas. He says the plaintiff changed his mind about moving into the place because he got into a fight with his girlfriend. The plaintiff was the one who broke their agreement, and he owes nothing. He's accused of not returning money.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff says he rented a 2-bedroom apartment from the defendant, but the guy would not disclose if there was lead in the apartment, so he wants his money back. Now, the defendant says the only reason the plaintiff doesn't want the place is because he got into a fight with his girlfriend and he's not returning anything. It's the case of not getting the lead out.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Day. You were looking for a 2-bedroom apartment and you found one that the defendant had listed, correct?
No, he did not list the apartment. I got the apartment through my girlfriend, Tracy.
All right, so you go in there, you look at it, you like it, and you decide you're gonna take it, right?
I decided I want to take the apartment. I give his handyman the rent money. And I asked Ernie for a receipt. He said, Mr. Lewis will be sending it to you with the lease. I did get the lease, but I never did get a receipt.
Yeah, never do that, ever in your life.
I know now.
Anyway, I don't think it's an issue in this case. You acknowledge getting $850 security deposit, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so it's not an issue, but you should never do that. So go on.
Okay. So I got the lease, I think it was the 6th or the 7th of June.
What was the deal, that you were renting it from June 1st?
Right. I was running around working, doing other things. I didn't get a chance to look at the lease. When I did look at the lease, I saw a lot of discrepancies in the lease that I never agreed to, like shoveling the snow.
Okay, let's hold on one second. Before you tell me that, Mr. Lucas, why isn't the lease signed before the date that he's renting it?
I don't live up in Troy. I live in Queens, New York, and I had to just get all the information and just fill it. I used like a template. I just filled it out and mailed it out to him. Had I been there in person, I would have loved to do it in person.
You could have emailed it to him, right? You could have emailed it. You could have done that before June 1st and emailed it to him. What happens when you let the guy move in is you don't have a lease. Now you have a month to month, and he's already in there. Now you're in a position of weakness. So use a template, but get around to it before you give the guy the keys, because the guy got the keys for June 1st in any event. You didn't have a lease beforehand. You didn't have a lease beforehand. There's no lease as far as I'm concerned. And what it is then, by operation of law, is a month-to-month tenancy. You didn't want to sign the lease. What was wrong with the lease you received, and why didn't you want to sign it?
I didn't want to sign a lease because he basically said that I would have to take care of his property. He said that I would have to clean the back, keep the backyard cleaned, make sure the garbage is out every garbage day, whatever the garbage day was, shovel the snow, take care of his property. I'm going to rent an apartment to take care of your property. He also sent me a letter stating that he was unaware whether or not the apartment had lead paint in it. I have 2 little daughters that I wanted to be there. So he wanted me to sign off on it as if I knew there was no lead paint there, whether it was in there or not.
All right, so why would his lease say that he had to shovel the snow?
Prior to them taking the apartment, Mr. Day and Tracy, one of the reasons Tracy was so happy about the apartment is because she knew the previous tenant, and she said that the backyard was like what she really loved about the place. And we had discussed, she's like, oh yeah, I'm going to make a nice garden back there. I was like, okay, so you're going to take care of the garden, right? I don't need to get a landscaper. And she said, yeah, sure, no problem. That's why I want the place. Just, it's kind of standard to put the garbage out.
What about the shoveling of the snow? Was Tracy going to do the snow shoveling too?
That was all discussed. It's something that I usually would bring up to a tenant, to just shovel the snow. The front of the house is only like 15 foot wide, and it was agreed upon and not an issue at the time. The lead paint disclosure, it's standard. If you sign a lease in New York with a house that is built prior to the 70s, if you don't have this lead paint disclosure, it's not legal.
He's kind of right that, well, he's definitely right on the lead paint thing. that, you know, anybody who owns something that's that old is gonna do what he did, which is say, to the best of my knowledge, I have no idea, but I don't know. And also, I don't think it's that unusual to keep up the landscaping, but it doesn't matter. If you don't like it, you don't like it, and that's it. It's your prerogative. So you look at it, you don't like it, and bully for you, you decide, I'm not signing this lease. Now what do we have? We have, by operation of law, what is called a month-to-month tenancy. And so what each of you have are the rights and obligations of nothing more than a month-to-month tenancy. You moved in, or you took possession of the place for June 1st. When did you get around to reading the lease and deciding that you didn't want to sign it? When did you communicate that to Mr. Lucas?
I gave him my address to where he was sending the lease on June 4th. I didn't get the lease until like June 7th. I turned the lights on, I think, at June 10th. Once I got the lease and I read it, I went back to the electrical company.
You had to turn the lights on in the place to read it? Wait.
No, not to read it. No, I was going to plan on picking the apartment until I got the lease and started reading it. And once I read it, I knew I didn't want that apartment.
Okay.
So
let me ask you a question, Mr. Day. You're suing today because you want not only your first month's rent back and your security deposit back, but also $800 in travel expenses and time from work. Let's put the travel expenses and time from work to a side. And let's talk right now about rent and security deposit. If you rent a place from June 1st, according to your own testimony, until what's the day you told them I don't want it? June what?
I believe it was 17th, I think.
How on God's green acres should you be entitled to get back that month of rent?
Actually, I never did live there. I never did go in there to live. I just put my things in there.
Yeah, that's not, but you understand that's not the standard. You've been there 17 days. I don't care how much time you spent there. You've rented it for 17 days. He's suing for the security deposit. And Mr. Lucas, you won't return that to him. Why?
He came up with all these excuses with the lease. And I say excuses because I understand he didn't sign it on the 1st, but we had verbally discussed it over the phone, every single issue in the lease. And he came up with other things. He also had a problem that his girlfriend's name, Tracy, was on the lease. I believe that that was the whole issue with this, that he got into something with Tracy.
Why do you believe that?
And that's because that's the only thing that made any sense. I tried to talk to Tracy. She was all acting strange. The fact that she didn't want her name on the lease was kind of weird. I don't know. But everything else was standard. I've never had a problem with the lease. But regardless, he didn't give me back the keys until the 20th. And at that time, I had discussed with Mr. Day that I thought I might be able to find someone to get the apartment for the following month, July 1st. I liked Mr. Day. That's why I chose him and Tracy. They seemed really nice. I wish nothing but the best for you, Mike. You seem like a super nice guy. But I tried to find someone for July. That fell through. I expressed, if I get someone for July, I'm not looking to double dip. I don't want to collect rent from two different people.
Did you end up renting the place out?
I was able to first rent it out for the month of August. The place was unoccupied for July. I had only like 2-3 days to actually get the place rented for July. Mike had understood this, and we were talking the whole time. But he got excited because I said I had leads, and when the leads didn't materialize, he got upset. And he started texting me stuff that was totally contradictory.
And then decided to sue for all of this. Right. Look, here's how it works. Bully for you that you decided, I don't want the place and I'm changing my mind, and you had the option to go ahead and do that. But who does that cost? Does that cost him or does that cost you? When you are in a month-to-month tenancy, your state of New York, and most states, frankly, require 30 days notice in order to break a month-to-month tenancy. That's a tenancy with no lease, just a verbal agreement. A month-to-month tenancy requires a full 30 days, not 30 days from the day I feel like telling you, but a 30-day cycle, rental cycle. So he doesn't have to return June, and he doesn't have to return July either, because that's that 30 days. That puts him in a position where he's not making money. He's just not losing money on your behalf because you changed your mind. All right? So I am not going to order him to return June, and I am not going to order him to return July, and I'm definitely not going to order him to return travel expenses to and from work, because you're actually losing the case. Verdict for the defendant.
So the plaintiff loses big time in this case, and I'm sure he learned something about the law about renting. Mr. Lucas, the defendant, how you feel about it, Mr. Lucas?
This is what I was expecting, but I'm not a lawyer, so I'm happy to be validated. But I only wish the best for Mike and his girlfriend and his daughters. I wish that he was just happy with the place and still living there. Like I said, nothing but the best for him. Hope him good luck in the future.
All right, Mr. Day, let's find out how you're feeling about it right now. You're not too happy, I'm sure. What do you think?
Not happy at all, no.
You learned a lot from this, haven't you?
Yeah, I learned not to trust anybody over the phone again.
Well, it's good to know the law, too, when you rent. All right, thank you very much. That'll do it for this case. Let's see what the judges have to say now. Time for another edition of After the Verdict.
A written lease protects both parties, a landlord and a tenant, in a situation where you're renting an apartment. The lease sets the rules, correct?
Correct.
If you looked at leases for apartments in this area, I guess it's Troy, New York, or somewhere in upstate New York, you're not going to find one that doesn't have a lead paint clause in it, right?
Well, I don't know. You're from upstate New York. I'm from Miami, where everything's nice and shiny and new.
Certainly, I think it's like required.
Yeah.
It's in practically every lease. And some of the terms that he was disagreeing with, or that he suddenly found objectionable, I was a little surprised. I didn't think you bought it either. Like, you're gonna have to take out the garbage?
Oh yeah, I forgot.
That's like, well,
yeah, that was one of the things. I got to take out my garbage. I'm like, what?
I have to flush my own toilets, stuff like that. These are things that people know is going to be a part of the lease.
Yeah, although I do think that he has, like, you might think the landlord's responsible for landscaping and shoveling snow if there's snow outside, but he changed his mind for whatever reason. And, good for him. He's not stuck there a year because the landlord didn't see to it that the lease was signed beforehand.
Right.
So Bruce wants to know this. Hey, Harvey, how long have you been a lawyer? I'm not going to tell you that. And why did you choose the law? I chose the law because I wanted to get into politics, honestly. I really wanted to get into politics. And I have been a junkie of politics all my life. That never happened. I may not be in politics, but I got the people's court. That'll do it for this case. Litigants for the next case inside the courtroom.